Blackmore refused to include deadly force incidents, refused to allow IPR to investigate deadly force incidents, refused to allow a citizen review committee to hear appeals in deadly force incidents. Jose Mejia Pote, day laborer, had been shot by the Portland Police in a mental health hospital, and the community demanded that the council do something around officer-involved shootings with the civilian oversight body. So the auditor's response was to create these annual reviews of closed cases, which is really not what the community wanted, and it's still not adequate. And that being said, while I understand Commissioner Rice's concerns, there have been some recommendations that have come from OIR group that have been implemented. Certainly the 48-hour rule was something the community demanded long before they even put it in their report, and part of the change came from community activism. And part of the problem is that these reports are given to the Bureau and the City Council, and we're already discussing whether or not they're being implemented, and the community hasn't had a chance to weigh in on these. And I'm really hoping the mayor will open up public testimony next week when the report comes before council. Because last year we were out for the first time since 2003 when the report started coming out, we were not allowed to testify in these chambers about these very important issues around police shootings. And I just want to add too that the next report is going to be a very thick one, because there have been 7 deadly force incidents in 99 days between September 30th and January 9th or January 6th, which is more incidents than happened in a single year since James Chastain was killed. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Diana, and I just wanted to encourage the council to hold off on extending until the full report has been received. I don't feel that it would be wise to extend something that hasn't been completely reviewed, and also allow the public to be made aware of what's going on. I think that there is a history starting back when this was, this is 2019, 9 years, and it seems like this next report is going to be very thick. There is going to be a lot on the table, and I think it's best to allow everyone involved to have the opportunity to speak, because again, we already heard about public testimony and communications, how important it is to speak, how important it is for us to hear one another and put our concerns on the table in a logical, rational way and come up with a positive solution. I would also say one thing to consider, who is on the board for the ORI? I mean, who are the people that are putting this material together? How are they speaking to the Portland Police Department? Is it in a respectful, reasonable way? These tensions and matters are very serious, and they should be spoken with logic and legit concern. A sympathetic ear is going to take you a long way. Same with a sympathetic voice.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And just to be clear, we've decided this is a non-emergency ordinance anyway, so it won't be voted on today. It'll be moved to next week, and we can read as a council to hear it after we hear the report.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, this is a first reading, the non-emergency ordinance, and moves to second reading. We will now move to time certain item number 71.
Appeal of Kyle's Bell against Portland Bureau of Transportation, posting property located at 2370 Southeast 60th for sidewalk repairs.
The council will now take up item 71. It's time certain to conduct a public hearing on the proposed assessment associated with the remonstrances for sidewalk repair at a property owned by Kyle Bell and located at 2370 Southeast 60th Avenue. This matter is being heard by the council pursuant to Portland City Code Section 17.28.160. Note to my colleagues, this is somewhat of an unusual proceeding. It follows a different protocol than what we're used to doing for hearings. This is the framework that has been suggested by our legal counsel and Bureau. The council is conducting a public hearing on the proposed assessments. The council shall consider and make its determinations based on the requirements of Portland City Code Section 17.28 and the city specifications maintained by the city engineer. The council shall affirm or modify the proposed assessments based upon its findings. The council's decisions shall then be implemented by ordinance, which sets forth the council's findings and decisions. The decision of the council may be appealed to the court by writ of review. The hearing will be conducted as follows. First of all, the Portland Bureau of Transportation will have 10 minutes to make their presentation. The homeowner, Kyle Bell, will have 10 minutes to present. The Bureau will have 5 minutes to present any rebuttal information, if desired. The council will then receive public testimony, which will be limited to 2 minutes per person. The council will then have an opportunity to ask questions of any of the presenters. The council is asked to hold all questions until the presentations of the Bureau and the homeowner, Kyle, are concluded, and that is, of course, somewhat different from our usual protocols. The council will then make findings and a determination based on the requirements of Portland City Code Section 17.28 and the city specifications maintained by the city engineer. In making its findings, the council may do one of three things. First, either adopt the findings in the statement of findings from the Bureau, or number two, modify the findings in the statement of findings from the Bureau, or number three, adopt its own findings. The Bureau will then return to council with an ordinance that comports with council's findings and determination. Legal counsel, is there anything I forgot?
No, Mayor.
Okay, very good. Then with that, the Portland Bureau of Transportation will have 10 minutes to make a presentation. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Tara Wasiak, the PBOT Maintenance Operations Group Manager. This is my colleague Amy.
Maybe Robertson.
Great, so I'm just going to give you a little background on the situation that brings us here today. On April 18, 2016, the Sidewalk Inspection Office received a report of an unsafe sidewalk at Southeast 60th, just north of Southeast Division. And this is a photograph of that hazard. So as a matter of course, we went out to investigate that hazard, and we investigate the full block face, so all of Southeast 60th from Division to Southeast Sherman was inspected for hazards. This is done for efficiency of inspection and also to sort of keep peace in the neighborhood so neighbors don't have to call in hazards on each other on a block. So on July 18, 2016, a sidewalk repair notice was sent to Mr. Bell in accordance with Portland City Code. And per code, Mr. Bell had 60 days to obtain a permit, complete the repairs himself or hire a contractor to do so, or request that the city make the repairs. He didn't do so until on July 27, 2017, a reminder letter was sent to Mr. Bell. So at the time, the estimated cost of repairs was $321. And this was if the city does the work for Mr. Bell, and the work is, when the city does it, the work is guaranteed for 3 years. And these charges include the full block replacement. Oftentimes, property owners get approval to do minimal repairs, which can result in substantially lower costs. So the repair notice sent to Mr. Bell included a diagram that located the hazards on the sidewalk abutting his property. This is that diagram. And the repair notice also includes the standards that the sidewalk inspection team uses to identify hazards. So in this instance, in the city of Portland, we use the half-inch standard, and it often seems stringent at first glance. But from a safety standpoint, larger deviations are sort of easier to spot and therefore somewhat easier to navigate, whereas these half-inch deviations are harder to see, especially at night, and often can result in trip and falls. And this standard has been in place in the city of Portland for at least 30 years. And Portland's not alone with this standard. Other cities use this half-inch standard. Seattle, for example, Sacramento, and even Denver has something a little bit more stringent, which is any change in the official grade of the sidewalk. So Portland is not alone. So to continue on the timeline, on August 29th, a final inspection was requested by Mr. Bell and performed, and since no work had started, the property failed inspection. On September 15th of 2017, a sidewalk inspector met with Mr. Bell, and minimal repairs and financing options were discussed at that time. In November of that year, property was posted with a door hanger by a contractor working on behalf of the city. And in December, the work was completed and the contractor was subsequently paid for the work. So in February of 2018, Mr. Bell appeared before City Council to contest the need for repairs, the validity of the charges, and to point out that more hazardous sidewalks exist in other parts of the city. And so based on that testimony, the assessment was reviewed for accuracy, and a revised assessment and the determination of remonstrance was sent to Mr. Bell in May of 2018. So one of the contested areas was the property line on Southeast Division. You can sort of see in the tree line, you can see in the tree line there where there's a fence. So the assessment was reviewed to ensure that we were not including any repairs that went beyond Mr. Bell's property line. The other contested area was the property line on Southeast 60th. This was a little bit harder to determine if it was on his property line or not, and so it was removed from the assessment. So this is the aerial review of that hazard, and from this vantage point, it is not a part of his property and it was removed from the assessment. So the revised assessment was sent in May of 2018, and it reduced the price to $5,599. So in June of 2018, Mr. Bell appeared before City Council for a second time, and the Sidewalk Maintenance Office was directed by council to further investigate the situation. So from June 18th through 29th, Mr. Bell and PBOT's administrator of the sidewalk repair contractors exchanged a series of emails, and the areas of concern include a curb repair and the placement of the door hanger by the city contractor. So there was a field decision to leave the curbs instead of requiring placement of the curbs. It was determined in the field that a saw cut of the curb could mitigate further deterioration, and it was deemed safe, and so the curb was not required to be replaced. As for the placement of the door hanger by the city contractor, this is a view of Mr. Bell's property. The door hanger was placed on the railing of the stairs, which they thought was the front of the house, but in fact, apparently the entry to the house is along the driveway to the north of 60th, and the door hanger was not placed on that door. The door hanger is not a legal obligation, it's a courtesy, and the contractor did a reasonable job to try to find the right spot. So in September of 2018, the city engineer reviewed the remonstrance and assessment and determined that the work was required by city code and that the charges were appropriate. So in recognition of the hardship that these repairs can present and in an effort to resolve the issue, the permit fee and the 10% auditor's fee were waived at that time. So the revised total is $4,825 for these repairs. And we believe that the assessment is fair and reasonable for the work that was performed. And here are some pictures of the completed work. This is Southeast Division, looking both east and west. And this is Southeast 60th, looking north. So with Mr. Bell's engagement and with the partnership of the City Ombudsman, Marty Solinger, the sidewalk repair inspection process has been improved. And the repair notices that go out, as well as the frequently asked questions that accompany those repair notices, have been updated to clarify a couple things. One, that there is no obligation to use contractors that solicit business.
Why?
They do not have partnerships with the city, and so it's abundantly clear that property owners do not have to use contractors that contact them for the work. We also are more explicit about the possibility of making minimum repairs. And we're more explicit about the financing options that are available. And in partnership with Commissioner Udaley's office, we're also exploring new initiatives to change from a proactive inspection system to address equity concerns. Currently, we are a complaint-driven system, so exploring how we might use our resources to proactively inspect is being explored. We're also looking into new financing strategies to reduce the burden on low-income property owners. And we're developing a strategy to address repairs needed on city-owned properties.